It was Miriam H. I think it was Hawley. And my father was Arthur Raymond Gledhill.
What did you know about the brother that died? Did they tell?
I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't born.
Did they ever talk about him?
Yes, they
Well,
did.
not.
He died of whooping cough.
Oh, when he was
And
just an
back-
infant?
Yes.
Oh, it was an infant.
His mother
Yeah.
told me that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And where was your parent? Where was your dad from?
I don't know. I think it was from Ohio. He never talked to me very much about.
And your mother? Do you remember where she was
Well,
from?
she was born in. Well, I'm not sure what. Around Canton, New York, northern New York State somewhere. I think it was Canton. You would have heard about that in your trips back there.
No, not too much. So, did you grow up in Massachusetts, or did you
Did I what?
grow up in Massachusetts, or?
No, I left there when I was 8 years old
And where'd you go to?
to Saskatchewan, Canada, Moose Jaw.
Ask him why he went up.
Okay, why did you go to why did your family move to Canada?
Well, I could give you a little narrative about. I think it.
Yeah, tell us the story
My father
about
and
it.
mother got married. They both went to St. Lawrence University. Now I don't know. I don't know if that was in Canton or not. I don't think so, but it's in northern New York. You should have heard of that too. Back there maybe. But anyway, she entered the college when he was graduating, and so she left college to marry him. He needed a job, so he started teaching school. And he ended up in Plymouth, taught school there for quite some time. And the children were all born while he was, while he was teaching school. And he was born in 1970. And my mother was.
1870.
Yeah, we know.
My mother was, I guess, a year or two later, not much. Anyway.
Not long after the Civil War.
Pardon?
Not long after the Civil War.
Well, quite a ways. The Civil War was over about 65. Anyway,
Your father was a teacher.
yeah, after he taught there, he got into the politics in town. Of course, Plymouth was a very small town in those days. I guess it still is, more or less. But
What was the mode of transportation? How'd you get around
well,
back then when you were in?
there were in my time I can remember a few automobiles, but not very many. And it was in town. There was streetcars and taxi cabs, I suppose. Well, not then, no.
And what'd you do for fun?
What?
What'd you do for fun?
Fun? Well, at 8 years old, fun is pretty dim. I don't remember too much about fun things.
Did you have chores?
Chores? No,
No chores?
not that I remember of. We weren't on a farm, we were in town. I got to this yet after he got into the political realm of the town. He got a job as a chief of police, and he was at that for about 6 years. But that's a political job, and after 6 years, the rival political party got power, and he lost the job. So he didn't want to go back and teach the school, so that's when we went to Canada. 1910.
And what'd you do? What did he do up there?
Well, his principal idea was to become a wheat king. At that time, the Canadian government was trying to induce people to come into Western Canada, which was very sparsely settled then. And it was very easy to get started in the farming business, although not so easy to continue.
Yeah.
So that's what he went up there for. And even became a naturalized Canadian. My mother did too. So that, of course, made me one also, being in whiter. Well, after, there was nothing particular. He worked as a carpenter for a year in a town, Moose Jaw, before we went out in the country. And, well, I guess one of the most important things about my oldest sister, Catherine, got a job right after she went, we got to Canada, to Moose Jaw, and there was a young man there with the name of Condon, worked in a jewelry store, right? They were in the same building, but jewelry doesn't take up much room. And the other side was a music company, and they sold musical instruments and music and so on. And Catherine could play the piano just good enough to demonstrate a piano to somebody that might want to buy one. So, although Roy was somewhat older than she was, they became interested in each other and eventually got married. She never did live out on the farm with us. But I don't really know that there was anything particularly earth-shaking in our stay there in Canada. It was a very hard road home. I think my father realized he'd made a bad mistake. My mother had not been used to anything of that kind.
Did your mom she worked on the farm? She didn't work outside the home?
No, we were able to raise a few chickens, and she just took care of us.
Did she sew and that kind of thing?
Yes. Oh, yes. I guess she did. I don't know about up there, but anyway, in 1917, the winter of 1917, I have an uncle, John. He was my father's uncle, my great uncle, great, I guess, to you people or something. Anyway, he had come to California in about 1906 and bought a tract of land out at Wilson, where Wilson, below Dudor, and sold it off in smaller lots, not building lots, but 10, 15 acres or whatever. So he had some land left. His wife had died, and he was an old man, grouchy old bastard. Excuse me, I didn't realize you were taking it.
That's
No, no.
okay. Just so you're not following in his footsteps. So
That's
that's
a legitimate term to use for somebody.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, he and my father made a deal, and we came to California, and the old ranch over there, and well, I want to tell you about my education.
Yeah, tell us all about it. Tell us
Okay.
whatever's on your heart, because this is going down forever on history.
Of course, I started school in Plymouth, first grade, and
Plymouth, Massachusetts, right?
and I was went to the third grade. About the school year was about the same time back there as it was in Canada, and it started in September to on through, and of course, the summer vacation the next year. Well, we left down there about April, and as I can remember, sometime in either last of March, 1st of April. So I'd gone a long ways through that third grade, and went to Canada. Went to school. My father took me to school there where we lived in Moose Jaw. This was first year, and for some reason, whether those Canadians, or I don't know whether they were Canadians or not, they were English, very English, pure English. They hated Americans with a passion. I don't know why.
Well, the
And
Boston Tea Party, probably.
I don't know why, but they were. But anyway, they put me back in the second grade. But you see, they were almost through the third grade too, because they'd started in September. So I breezed through the rest of the second grade, and they advanced me into the third. But before school started the next year, we moved over to North Hill, which was a different section of the town, of course, and the people were different, and I went to a different school, and I started there in the third grade, and all through the winter, almost through the third grade, we went out to farm. Well, in the country, they have to close the schools in the winter on account of the bad weather. So they were just starting the third grade.
You had
So-
3 years of the third grade.
Yeah, and so there I was, because we left there in 10, I was 8 years old, see, when we left Plymouth. And we were in Canada for 7 years. So, there was no, I don't know whether it ever been discussed that I might go to town and live with my sister and get some further education there or not after the Red Lake School, which was the little country school. I don't know if it ever been discussed or not, but anyway, my Uncle John and my father were talking about California move. I was just entering the 8th grade in this country school. But it was in March, weather was very bad. The teacher was a young girl, about 18, 19 years old, and she had to board about 3 miles away. She had no transportation, and the man, the family that she was living with was supposed to bring her to school. Bad weather, but he wouldn't do it. So we only lived a half a mile from the school, and they paid me, the school board paid me something, I don't know, it wasn't very much, to go up and light fires and sweep out the school. After they did that all year, but of course the fires weren't necessary in the summer. But anyway, so I'd go up there, no teacher. There'd be a few kids come, maybe if it was really bad, why people didn't bring their children. And so I got disgusted with school in that first month, and the decision had already been made to come to California. So I says to Papa, why don't I quit school? You can teach me, you're a school teacher. And in Canada, you had to buy all your own textbooks and everything, pens, pencils, I got all that stuff, you can teach me. Well, he bought it. He knew he was right, but he bought it.
You talked him into it.
And yeah, but the school was, the weather cleared up, we had to start farming, so the school, and then I got schooling I got from him, didn't amount to anything. So, I guess they're not leaving out much more happened up there.
Well, then
When you went to school, how many, did you have like first grade through 8th grade in the same room?
Anyway,
First grade through 8th grade in
Oh,
the
yeah.
same room?
yeah, all in the same room. Oh, that's a lot of fun. You can sit there and listen to the teacher try to bat something into those kids' heads. You already know the answers, but
Well,
they don't.
how many different teachers did you have? When you
Well,
were,
one every year,
a different teacher every year?
you know.
You wouldn't
Well,
let-
that was a terrible situation for a young girl to come out and teach because there was nothing to do. There was no social life there much, especially in summertime. There were some dances in the winter, but school wasn't there. The teachers weren't there then. But it was an awful monotonous thing for a young girl to have to do that. But they did it because they could go teach for a year and get a certificate, and allow them to go to another college. They call them for normal schools up there. And she could get a certificate to teach another year, and eventually get a fully accredited teacher's permit to teach. And of course, the townspeople, they didn't have to hire those kind of teachers. So they were a different breed, really, in there. So,
Tell me the difference between the townspeople and the farm people.
well, not really. The only thing was that the farm people were, in those days, were more isolated. And there were, as I said, there were no trucks. So
Did you have a radio?
yeah, but
Did you have electricity?
no. No electricity, no telephones, no nothing of that sort.
No running water?
No, any kind of water is awful scarce. The water in Canada is very sketchy. Some places they got good water, but we had some good water, but very, very little of it. And I can go on now. You're bringing up things in.
Well, talk about it.
Tell us.
If it's interesting, people want to know.
Uh, in the wintertime, my job was to take we had what they call a lake down on about 15 acres of the 160 we had. So I had to go down there and drive these cattle, and 3 or 4 head of cattle and horses and stuff. Chop all the ice. The ice froze very thick in that country. And anyway, that was a chore in the wintertime. Of course, I wasn't going to school then, so there was something to do. I had a horse that I rode. A little hand axe. Sometimes the lake would freeze the bottom and I have to go farther away to get another lake. Then my father dug a well alongside this lake and we had water all the time, but then you had to pull it up with a rope, the bucket, ice, not that thick on the rope. So, but I didn't mind those things. I didn't know any better. And that was a part of the thing. Of course, I helped I grew up fast. I attained my weight and height and everything pretty early because it seemed like I never did grow much after I came to this country.
So after your uncle and your uncle talked your dad into moving to California in 1910, you said?
Well, we left in 1917. The war was on. The United States just ended the war.
First World War?
Yeah. And
Second World War.
when we got down here, there was no power, no telephone, no rural delivery of mail out in Wilson. Our address was Yuba City. No, that was after. The first address was Tudor. The mail used to come into Tudor because the railroad went down that way. And it was quite a common thing for people to collect at the store at Tudor in the evening and wait for this little old car to come up and get the mail. But things progressed though after the war was over. In the 1980 things. Well, I was saying it was very fast. And we got power, we got telephone, we got delivery, and of course you only lived over there for 9 years. And
what did you do while you lived over there? Did you farm
we
or
had this,
ranch? Or?
had this old ranch over there that had the old brick house. Part of it was wood, and the big old warehouse on the place. This was a headquarters for a big wheat farmer or grain farmer back in the 80s. But when he died, his children, I guess, inherited the place, but the boy wasn't brought up for a worker. He brought up as a rich man's son. Anyway, they lost the place, and I don't know whether it was when my uncle bought it or not, but anyway. No, I get disjointed here. Anyway, he had quite a few parcels left. I also had a parcel left. I say he and my father didn't get along too good because two Gledhills don't, when you put them in close,
They fight?
when you put them in close, they don't like to be bossed.
No.
Yeah, I know that.
I never did either. My old man and I, we always had big ruckus at times about things because I thought he didn't do anything, and my way was the only way that would ever produce anything. But after a while, I found out.
That sheds some light on some things now.
After a while, I found out it was a little different. But anyway, we started to learn the orchard business. Go along a little bit further with the education. Oh, that's something else. When we got here, we had a little family conference, Mother and Dad and I, and what I was to do, because Central School just about a mile up the road, another one-room school, just down from that two-door turn, about a half a mile. Anyway, could have gone up there, but I was able to do a man's work. I didn't want to go to school, particularly, because I might have had to go back to the 7th grade, taken 7th grade, worked there in the 8th grade, and then there was no high school in Yuba City in those days. And even if there was, the problem of getting him there, which was about 10 to 12 miles from where we lived. There was a high school in Center City. You know where Center City is, you probably know where the high school is. As far as I know, it's the same place it was 100 years ago. Anyway, as I say, the war was on, and the economy was on a wartime basis. So people were students that didn't want to go to high school. A few of them got into Marysville. I don't know how they did that, but some of them did. But Marysville was very small. You know where the high school is now, it's still there.
Of course.
And so to get to Center City was quite a job. So if I had done that, assuming I wanted to go through high school, I'd have been 21 years old. So that wasn't a very pleasing prospect because I was eager to go into this new life, new business, you might say. I was learning the fruit business. So we figured, well, you're the only boy. Dad said you're the only boy. And if we succeed here, well, you can inherit the place when we go. So we started out along with that, on that basis, and I gave up school. I had no more schooling. But right now I want to say, from a very small child, even before I went to school at all, I was interested in reading, and I did an awful lot of reading. All my life, and of course in the younger days I could read things and retain them, so that when I went to school, the things that we had to learn and memorize from books I liked to read, and so I did well in those things.
Hello? How are you? Who's my mom? No, this is Steve. You want to talk to Shirley? Okay, hold on.
Hello.
Well, that
Well,
attributes to a lot of.
hang on, and I'm gonna.
You know,
Do you have regrets about not going to high school, or you think you made the right decision?
I think so, because I don't know how I ever got over there in the first place. And of course, after the war was over, probably a couple of years, maybe 1920, Henry Ford came out with a small Ford bus, and that started high school. Bought a couple, and they ran one over there in that area, so that from then on it was easier for students to get over there. However, I think it was in 1924 that Yuba City finally built a high school, and they provided buses, of course, and the whole thing switched around. So from then on, people who went in the country, had transportation into high school. But when I was 21 years old, I bought a truck. If I'd have been going to school, I would have had a truck. And while
What kind?
Ford, just there was no windshield, there wasn't any cab, there wasn't anything. I don't know, it probably cost $700 or $800 perhaps. So I went in the trucking business after, during the winter time there wasn't much trucking because the only thing we could get with those kind of trucks was agricultural, hauling grain and stuff of that sort. But anyway, I always had a truck from then on. And the reason that I bought the truck, I got to be just 21 years old. I was still on the ranch up there, and after we got the crops off, the fruit, peaches, and had many prunes then. Wasn't anything to do much, so I went down and helped a neighbor in dry yard. Of course, paid me for the work, but dry yard work's not very easy.
What is that?
Well, back in those days, they used to dump there was prunes I was working in. They dumped the prunes into a vat with soda stuff to tenderize the skin so they'll dry better. And you lay them out in the dryer on these wooden trays. Well, it takes two men to do that. You have to bend over and pick up the tray, and you have to combine. After they dry it out, you combine the trays to get trays to use, and just all nothing but labor. So, of course, I was young and used to it, but I didn't particularly view a lifetime of that sort of thing. And I thought, well, another young guy in the neighborhood had a truck, and he seemed to be busy with it more or less. And so I thought, I'm going to buy a truck, so I did. I worked 2 years in that dry yard first in the fall before I broke loose. And then, well, as time went on, and very glad that I did, because at the time Shirley and I were married, I had to have a job. And,
Okay, how'd you meet Shirley?
Well, you want to go into that?
Yeah, we gotta
Yeah,
have
I
it.
have no idea. I don't know how old you were when you or where you met her. Is she from here? I don't know anything about that.
You know, well, I guess it's a good time to get anything. Along that time, well, we were married in 31, it was probably 1928 or 30 that I noticed that she was alive. There was a man named Metrovich that well, it was a kind of a repair shop and gas pump just across where they lived over there in the corners. And I used to stop there if I came home from someplace. I'd stop there and talk to a Duke or anybody that happened to be around. And his wife was always around there, Duke's wife. And so Charlie had seen me, and I guess she had thought I was Prince Charming or something, and she
The cat's pajamas.
made excuses to get over there. And while I saw her, I never paid much attention to her until Duke's wife said, "There's somebody here that thinks that all of you." So that made me look at her. Well, anyway, that's the way it started. And,
Now, were you still living out in?
yeah,
In
no,
Yuba
we,
City?
no, we moved over here,
Okay, when did you move over here?
1925.
With your dad or
Pardon me?
with your dad?
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as well, I have to go back a little bit to clear that up. The Uncle John, when we made a deal with my father, because he didn't give him the property, father gave him some notes, and one for the livestock and equipment, which didn't amount to much, and the other for the land. I don't know how much they were, but anyway, he paid off the note for the livestock and equipment. But the land, 1924, I think it was, a frost occurred. It froze our peaches. So when the time came to make the payment, well, I got to go back a little bit further. Uncle John, as I said, he promised not to sell these notes, but the old fool got married when he was about 75 years old, and he needed some money. She did. His wife, I never did see her, but he only lived a year or two after the marriage. And anyway, he sold the notes, and he sold the security out from under us. So when that frost occurred, father didn't have the money for the payment on the land that fall, so it got foreclosed. We had to leave eventually, although we stayed there another 1 year, which was legal, as long as they hadn't notified us to get. Anyway, that's the reason we moved to Sutter County, or to Yuba County. In the meantime, my father got a job with PG&E, and of course, after we got tractors over there after the First World War, my father never did much farm work anyway. I did all the work.
I
over
wonder
here.
if he worked with my grandfather at PG&E. My grandfather worked at PG&E.
Well, so what?
Perry. His last name was Perry. Jesse Perry.
That was in 1920. Okay, well, 24, father went to work for him. And anyway, when we came over here, I bought this piece of land here too, and we started out in the peach business again. And but I still had the truck. And I had a Model A by that time. And so as I said, like, we got married, I had to have some way of feeding her. So the we went to Reno to get married, and then when we came back, I hadn't told my folks what I was going to do. And we came back, and of course I kind of guessed that I hadn't come home at night that something had happened. So it was kind of a shock, I guess. And we talked a while, and I said I had already looked at an apartment in town where I was going to take her.
Yeah,
And,
we were going
I said,
away.
well, I'm going to be going. The fellow wouldn't know where I was going. I told him, he says, oh, no, he says, this is your home.
Stay here for a while till you build on your home. That's what we did. You know.
This is your home. You stay here. Well, that suited me right down the ground because I got married on $400 I borrowed on my life insurance. So we settled down there a while, and finally one day Father says, you know, John, when I talked about you staying there, I didn't mean forever. So I said, by God, that's right.
Oh, we were already planning on building here.
I'll see if that apartment's still available. He says, well, why don't you've got a little money, I know, you got a few $100, and why don't you buy some lumber and build a little shack there and save the money, and you'll eventually build up to something maybe that still grows money well rent. So that was the best piece of advice he ever gave me. We started out with I was just came here. This was just a street porch, just that one room in there. Well, when Gary was knocking on the door, well, I built that other room out there myself, with a little help from my father and advice about how to make joints and so on. Anyway, that's how we got started.
My Uncle Al helped too.
Well, Al did the work later, but anyway, that's when I got the job driving the school bus, or furnishing the transportation, really, because I owned the bus. And Denning Brothers built me the bus on this Model A truck I had. So and by that time, in 1931, the depth of the Depression, and money was, if you had $10, you were rich. Nobody had any money. That job enabled us to pay our bills and eat. And in fact, in 1936, we bought a brand new Chevrolet.
Wow.
Things
Wow.
began to-
$800.
began to come up.
Wow.
$800 I could
But we
anyway,
kept on building, and this is what we got. Beautiful.
from
Hard work on both of us.
it was all hard work.
Wish you had Dorothy back though.
I took care of my father's deal. I said I did all the work. I did all the work over here too, until it got so much I couldn't do it all. So I did that for 9 years. I had 3-year contracts, and
And you supplied peaches to who? Who bought the peaches? Bonnie or?
well, we farmed the peaches too, but of course we had to wait for the trees to grow, one thing, and then the peaches got overproduced. We know prices. A couple of years it didn't even get hardly to make them. It was $5 a ton, wasn't $9 a ton. But we did get a little bit out of the peaches, but we got a lot of good. Produced Harry and Jim eventually, and then I lost. It was 1940 when she won it. I was on a big last bus around 1940. So I really started life all over again. I mean,
How old were you?
well, then I was in 1940. I was 38, and of course, a couple of years the war started again. I had been in out from slave to grow hay, and because they're making so much they had running well and everything. So they drove the hay. They lost lease after 4 years, and we left town. Well, that's his already passed. We never used it. And
Yeah, we own the right there. On
oh,
the
that down in the Motor County. There's a lot of that happened to it.
We made it.
Yep, made it.
Got good kids out of it.
Yeah.
Grandchildren.
What were the? Do you remember the first radio you found?
Yeah, I was still living in that county. Now, back after that down there from one of their guys, where they see if they were around, see if they got to go down here. And the cons came first. And Roy was, we could some men and very quiet and locked up himself. So radios, there's some gives made one.
Oh.
With a little whistle set. And you could hear something, so that was probably about the 2 or 3 somewhere in Ireland. But yeah, we had radios and eventually the first TV was in black and white, of course.
What about your other sister? When did she get married?
Well, she married, when she got married and got involved with Bill Lowe. That's when he knew about the Lowe's and all that. some are still around, but not many.
Whatever
Well, in
happened?
fact, anyway, she'd all planned on getting married when he left, but they didn't get married then. They wanted to, all I guess, but he was trying to make a living growing wheat too. And she was going to stay in town. It went away a while, but after we left, they couldn't wait any longer, so they got married up there. But that wasn't the first one. The second one, I guess they came down and spent the winter with us. There wasn't anything to do up there, and they decided, Bill and Mary decided they would move down here permanently. So he went back for another year, and at the end of that year, they did come. And so, of course, by that time she had 2 children.
Now, when you moved from Canada to here, how did you get here? How did you travel from Canada?
Well, when we came, we boarded the train to Shaw, and then took that train to Vancouver. And we were going to come from Vancouver to Seattle on a boat. So as I explained, this was in wartime. Father had a little difficulty getting out of Canada. And I think that, I don't know whether it was the Canadian authorities or the American authorities there that said, well, you could come down here on a visitor's
Visa?
permit or whatever, and just don't come back. Well, what kind of paper he had, I don't know. When we got to Victoria, still in Canada, at noontime we got off the boat, went down to get some lunch, just to say that we'd been in Victoria. No other. When we get back to the boat, there was an official there, and he wasn't going to let us board,
This is stuff I
because
had
he
already.
liked what was on these papers. And the best thing you can do, go down and see the American consul there to Victoria. So we did, and of course he didn't know anything about us or anything about it, but he just scribbled his name on the card and handed it to Father. We rushed back. Of course, the captain of the boat was all for us. He thought, oh, the boat like a dam. And anyway, I know I was scared to death. When I got on that ship, I went down as far as I could, the lowest deck, and stayed till I got well out to sea again. And then we were afraid, well, maybe that guy would wire down to Seattle and catch us when we got off the boat. But he didn't do that, so there was no problem there, except we were all Canadians. So when we got down here, my father had to renaturalize. I didn't, because I was still a minor. But they had to become renaturalized and become American citizens again.
Interesting, huh?
We stayed in Seattle several days. Roy Conan's mother, 2 sisters lived there. And of course we had never seen them, so we spent a couple of days visiting with them. And then boarded the train again and came to Marysville. Uncle had an old 1911 Mitchell. Well, it wasn't so old then, but it was a, whether you see pictures, you've seen 1911 model cars or not, but I guess they would run about 20 miles an hour when it ran. Much of the time when it didn't run. But that was
And that's why we don't have Mitchells today, right?
Yeah,
Mitchell's.
That's the name of
the name of the car.
Anyway, they had horses on the ranch over there.
What kind of horse? What kind of horse?
Well, they were
Like
work horses.
plow, like draft horses? Were they big boned, big horses?
Well, yeah. But as I say, during the war, there wasn't very much advance in farm technology. But
World War One?
World War One. But as soon as it was over, of course it took about a year to reconvert to civilian economy. But a lot of things happened fast.
Well, there was a lot of inventions that went on that they used during World War One.
You know,
And then after that, they were able to bring them over here, and the everyday people used them.
that's right. I say that things happen, but they happen very fast after they get retooled for these things. Of course, a lot of cars, tractors, trucks didn't survive. They were either abandoned as not being worthy of any more work, or else they were integrated into other companies. But anyway, things happened pretty fast after.
So when you were in Sutter, did you plow like with a team?
Yeah, I plowed in an old walking plow. That was the only way we had.
One horse or two?
Two.
What kind of horse?
We already said that.
Well,
Sorry.
4-footed ones.
Well, were they?
They had
Oh,
short ears, so
Did
they
you ever-
weren't a
Did you ever
mule.
have any Clydesdales?
What?
You ever have any Clydesdales?
No.
No. Draft
We-
horses, though.
Ground horses. And they were farm horses. Well,
Plugs.
if we farmed outside, like we had some grain land there, why, we used 3 horses in a hookup. Whereas in Canada, they either use 2 or 4. Well, someplace down here they use 4, but oftentimes 3. I don't remember whether we used 3 in oyster work or not, but I can't remember that. It doesn't matter anyway. But, I think it was about probably 19 or 20. We bought 2 of the first Ford tractors that Ford built. I don't know whether you know what they are or not, but there's still some of them around.
I remember. You used to have it out here. We used to play on it here at the house.
Well, that wasn't the kind. They were. He made a couple before that.
I remember I was out here in your yard
Yeah.
playing on there, and every once in a while I'd figure out how to turn that key, and then when I would press that little button on the floor, that tractor would jump forward and scare me out of my mind.
Yeah.
All the kids played on the
And I
tractor.
thought we were going to get in bad trouble.
That wasn't the first Ford that Henry made, though. That was later on. But then I had a cleat track. That was a track machine, but they didn't know anything about hardening steel in those days. So, and they also didn't know anything about keeping dust out of bearings, and a whole lot of things as he advanced. To
So
make
you always
those,
have to replace the bearings, huh?
you know, they nowadays they pack the bearings at the factory and you never have to mess with them because they wear out completely when you put another one in. But anyway, they say my father didn't do any work. I did all the work after getting the tractors.
You guys can cut this off.
I used to go out in the rice, pull a bike during the rice fields, during rice harvest for a few days, and then probably would take about 12, 15 days to do the cutting, and then when they started up, they had to let the rice dry so they could thrash it. By that time, we have it all cut. The first part of it would be ready to thrash. So then I got a job in my truck hauling rice.
So what did your father do that he didn't do the farm, but what else did he
He's
do?
telling me how to do it.
Oh, and he was doing PG&E work.
Well, that was later, but after, let's say after we got the tractors, I can't remember if my father ever doing any tractor work. But before that, he did, and of course there were other things to do. And I don't know, it seemed like he got old awful fast to me. He was only 30, born 1970, he was 30 years old back in that. And by 1920, well, he was only around 50 years old, which
When he died, or how old was he when he
he
passed
died,
away?
he was 77 when he died. But he worked for PG&E for about 12 years, I think, and he was awful lucky to get that job at his age. He knew the general manager at that time. I don't know whether that helped him or not, but as soon as he knew he lost the place, well, he knew he was going to have to do something else to make a living for he and my mother. I always told him I could take care of myself. And although I stayed with him, and helped him get started here in the fruit business. I took care of that and Shirley helped a whole lot too. And they had freestone peaches that he planted down there, which we sold here with a little stand out in front. And
I took care of that in the summertime.
Shirley did a lot of work to take care of the stand while I had other things to do. At that time I was still in the hay business. War was still on.
What year did you sell off this and subdivide it and all that?
A lot of what?
What time? When did you decide to sell the orchard and?
Oh, well, we decided, Father and I, when we came here and we built and planted this orchard. The peach orchard is good for about 20 years. And we would sell the, we would plant one orchard and sell it, subdivide, which we more or less did. It's about 20 odd years or 20 years. When the peach orchard started going out, and in fact in 1950 all of the peaches that were planted in here were drowned out in a flood anyway. So we had all ours out just a little before the year or so before that. That flood took it, but we would have been out anyway if we had done it that way.
That's when we subdivided all this in here.
So we practically gave the land away, but at that time it seemed like a good price. I think our highest price lot was $660.
Wow.
Now they're selling for around $15,000.
How much did it cost? How much did you finally sell that old house where I was 5 years old over here, where I grew up till I was 5 years old? I lived over here on Janet Avenue.
So that to who did we sell that to?
What house is
The
that?
house over here on Janet Avenue. That
Well,
kids
well, Bob Barber bought it. He was married to Charlie's youngest daughter, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't remember about them, I guess.
no, they were too little.
Miller Girls. Miller was right across the street.
Oh, I remember them. She hit me on the head with a shovel. No,
Yeah.
that was the one right across the street. That was Miller, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Remember that? Remember the girl that hit me on top of the head with a shovel?
Oh no, I don't.
I remember it.
Well, you should.
Well, after your father moved to town, well, we bought the place back from him, and when he went in there, well, I had bought this old house and moved it in there, and I had done most anything to get him away from all the cold.
Oh, careful! This is all
Well,
on tape.
this all stays right here, of course.
Yeah, but you can't cut that